The All-Star breaks in the rearview mirror for the Seattle Mariners. We're going to go over the 2024 draft and some of the guys the Mariners took after the second round and what we like about some of those guys. Then we're going to talk about the first 100 or so games for the Seattle Mariners, talk about their first half grades. How'd the offense do? How'd the pitching do? Obviously, we're going to have some interesting choices about those grades. Then we're going to talk about the Jerry Dipoto interview that went out on Seattle Sports Radio on Wednesday. And we're going to wrap it all up by talking about the Houston Astros series coming up out of the break. It's a big series. Thank you guys so much for watching episode 105 of the Hit It Here podcast, part of the Bleav Network, the Phil the Gamer episode of the podcast. Joe, how are you, man?
Wow, Phil the Gamer. That's a name.
That's a name.
That's a name right there. I'm great. Didn't have to watch the Mariners lose a baseball game today. Haven't had to do it in a couple of days. It's feeling nice and refreshed. Okay. Sucks that Munoz didn't get to pitch in the All-Star game. But maybe they're worried about his bat. Whatever, okay? I'm not super harped about it. You put out a tweet kind of banging a little bit about being upset about it. And I get it. You want to see the player representing you in the All-Star game pitch. Didn't happen. Logan Gilbert obviously wasn't going to pitch. It is what it is, right? It's just how the nature of that game goes when you're on the biggest stage trying to get all those people in there.
Yeah, Joe, and we were talking about the home run derby in the last podcast. I wish I would have made some bets because I said I want Teo to win it, but I think it'll be Bobby Witt Jr. And both guys were in the finals. So I wish I would have made those bets with Bet Online.
Thank you to Bet Online for being a sponsor for the Hit It Here podcast. Bet Online is your number one source for all your sports betting needs this season. From baseball, golf, soccer, and even all the top fights in UFC, MMA, and boxing, every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads while the games are being played, Bet Online has you covered. And when the game's over, head on over to the online casino and get in on a game of blackjack or poker, or unwind with one of the over 150 slots games to play. Head to the website today to get in on the action and use promo code Bleav, that's BLEAV, for your 50% free bet credit on your first deposit up to $250. Bet Online, the game starts here. Well, the MLB draft is a weird one because it extends beyond many rounds. Like the NBA, it's only 2. The NFL, 7 rounds? 20 rounds the MLB draft is, right? You mentioned first... You cut out. You said it used to be 50. No audio came through. You mentioned the Mariners draft after the second round. Obviously, the first pick was Durangelo St. Second pick, an overslot value at 55. They got Ryan Sloan. They also signed Durangelo St. to the full slot value at 15 when he was the 25th ranked prospect. I think during that whole process, we're like, maybe they'll go under slot here to get an overslot guy later. That's what they did. However, they went full slot for St. So that means they had to save some money, I feel like, later on in this draft to be able to sign some of the guys. Sloan's already been announced as, yep, I'm coming to Seattle. He was, I think, committed to Wake Forest. He was the one lone high school player, not even pitcher, just player that they drafted in this. And we got him, which is very, very exciting. But Colton, the rest of this draft, it was a lot of college guys, a lot of arms. And there's been some standout names, I think, that people are kind of gravitating towards. And if that's like impacted on previous year's draft where they got some maybe good production out of a 5th, 6th, 7th round pick that is now developed looking pretty good in the major leagues, say like a Brian Wu or a Logan Evans, like the college stats don't really matter a ton or as much later in these rounds. It's more about like pitch types and like just like shapes of pitches and everything like that. And this team has been great at identifying some of those talents and being like, yeah, we'll turn you into the best guy that you can be. Hunter Pratt, I think, is at the top of a lot of people's list as, yeah, he's the 3rd rounder, but a guy that could develop pretty quickly through the system. You mentioned Josh Caron. He's a catcher. That's like outside of the realm of pitching development, but that's a college catcher that is going to be in the system that is seemingly pretty, I don't want to say like lackluster on like premium catching depth. If they could turn that into anything, that'll be great. But do you have other people on out of the last, 16 rounds or whatever that stand out to you as far as guys that you like from this draft class?
Yeah, I mean, the thing about Josh Caron is he has a ton of power. I think if that's kind of what stands out to me the most, I think for most people as well. The big problem with him is the swing and miss. But he's a guy that if he can kind of, I guess, rein that in a little bit, could move through this system relatively quickly. I think Hunter Cranton could be up next year.
Whoa.
Like, I really do. I think that he could be at the back end of a bullpen next year. He's a senior science. He's a guy that they were able to save a little bit of money on. Grant Knipp, a catcher and a right-handed pitcher. just a strange way to go about being a two-way player.
Why not?
Huh?
Why not? Just catch your own
Why
bullpen.
not?
Yeah, just catch your own bullpen. That's how it works. He runs over there real fast, catches it. No? Okay.
Anyway, yeah, so I think that's a guy that really stands out to me just because I don't know if I've ever seen a catcher and pitcher. Like it's just usually it's like, oh, he plays outfield or shortstop. In terms of names that were drafted, there are some good names in here. Obviously, Durangelo Sange is a good one, right? But the 20th round pick, the last pick for the Mariners in the draft, Ryan Piccolo, Joe. I'm not a big Dragon Ball Z guy, but Ryan Piccolo is a great name.
I'm doing the special beam cannon right at the camera right now. Nope, not that one. But that's okay.
Well, that's goes to show how much I know about Dragon Ball Z. So, but yeah, overall, very interesting draft for the Mariners. Like you said, 19 of the 20 guys they drafted were college guys, and 12 of them were pitchers, which I found very interesting. Interestingly enough, is all only right-handed pitchers, no lefties. They didn't draft a single left-handed pitcher. So yeah, a lot of in terms of just what they drafted. Again, 12 pitchers, a catcher in Josh Caron, a catcher / right-handed pitcher in Grant Knipp, an outfielder in Anthony D'Onofrio, like Vincent D'Onofrio. I love Vincent D'Onofrio, bro. Evan Truitt. Oh, he was a right-handed pitcher. Just kidding. Brandon Ike, I think, is an infielder, outfielder. Eek. Austin St. Laurent is an infielder. And then again, Ryan Piccolo as an outfielder. So yeah, very interesting draft for the Seattle Mariners. Also notable, they didn't go with any middle infielders in this draft like they normally do. So probably because they got 2 or 3 in the last draft in the first couple of rounds. So yeah, I think that this draft for the Mariners, they do a pretty bang up job with the draft, and I trust their player development. And overall, I'm very happy with this class. I think Durangelo Sange is a guy that could just if you guys watched the last podcast, I actually have Ryan Sloan ranked higher than Sange. Obviously, Sange would be up before Ryan Sloan in a perfect world because he is a college guy, whereas Sloan is a high school guy. But yeah, this is a draft where I think the Mariners did a great job.
I liked how you brought up the no lefty arms just to fuel the fire of the weird people that fixate on that. I don't know what it is. Who cares? It doesn't matter. We technically got a left-handed pitcher in Senja. Technically, he's a switch pitcher, right?
That's a good point.
But
yeah.
I just know that there's probably a vocal minority out there online somewhere that hates the fact that no left-handed pitchers were drafted. Why are they don't have a lefty in the rotation now? Blah blah. Let's just give it up. It's tired.
There's also vocal people out in the fan base right now saying, well, the Mariners have plenty of pitchers right now. They didn't need pitching. They needed bats.
Yeah, that is also true.
They just don't know how player development works. So, but alas, we move on, Joe, to the Mariners' first half grades. This team is in first place right now, Joe, which is why I think these grades are going to be so interesting because there is very clear flaws in this baseball team. And I think that the offense is one of them. I mean, I'm giving the offense a D-.
Oh yeah, they're very very below. They're below than what we need them to be. They're below, I think, that what we expected. The problem of strikeouts that was supposed to be fixed, the higher contact rate, that was the idea of what they're trying to change about this offense coming out of the offseason. It's just not there. So they have just literally not met expectations. I think a D is very safe and sound. I don't think it's an F. There's definitely guys on this team that are performing well enough to not be an F to, really bring home the D for this offense right now. But Cal, 20 bombs. Hard to argue there. Julio, I mean, it's not great, but as our WRC plus is over 100, he's better than league average. It's 102. There are guys that are still there that are doing something, but it's just not, it has not been enough, unfortunately.
And the only thing that's really kept them in first place, Joe, has been their pitching staff. And starting with the rotation, I mean, you got to give them an A, right? I can't think of any other, in my opinion, best rotation in baseball. You have to give this rotation an A.
I don't think there's really an argument unless you are going to consider health as part of it.
Right.
Maybe that's your one setback for this team so far because Brian Wu, and then the concern about innings and Scott's taking him out too or whatever, right? It's an A. They've pitched their asses off to stay in first place. and hold that lead. They gave themselves a 10-game cushion with excellent pitching. That's what they've done. The bullpen, I don't think it's as good. But with that being said, you can then kind of maybe take injury into that as well, because you're missing a guy that you expected to have in Matt Brash. You missed Gregory Santos up into the last 2 weeks. There are guys that are having to fill in into roles that maybe they weren't expected to. So your bullpen depth wasn't as good. Like if we could go through each individual, like Munoz, A plus, all star for obvious reasons, right? But if we're just grading the bullpen as a whole, I'm probably giving them like a B plus. Like it's not bad, but it hasn't been A worthy in my opinion.
Mhm. Yeah, I'd give it probably the bullpen probably just a solid B. I think that, like you said, there's been a lot of mix and match guys. Overall, though, Munoz is the only one I think that is deserving of an A in
Mm-hmm.
terms of the specific guys in there. Um, with that being said, Joe, I'm just going to rapid fire some guys at you on this team. I want you to give me a letter grade. Are you ready?
Yes.
J.P. Crawford,
C plus,
Cal Raleigh,
B plus.
Ty France,
I feel like I should have given Cal an A minus. Ty France like a D plus,
Julio Rodriguez,
a C.
Mitch Haniger,
It's hard not to say F when he's like literally like the least valuable player, like in terms of WAR. Yeah, F. I'll say it F.
Jorge Polanco,
F.
Luke Raley,
I'll say like a B. B minus.
Logan Gilbert,
A plus.
Brian Wu,
A for what he's given you. Like I'm not mad at it.
Ryan Stanek,
B.
mm. and last one here, Josh Rojas.
Oh my god. Excellent defense. Bat has cooled off tremendously. Given the expectations coming into the year, one of the least valuable position players by WAR in terms of projections, I'll sit at like a B plus. And I could be a little bit biased there. Are there any in there that you kind of inherently disagree with?
I don't think so. No, I think that you're pretty spot on. I mean, I think we are usually in agreement on most of these guys in terms
Mhm.
of just how they're playing. Um, I think that Luke Raley, like if we had to give out awards right now, like where are you going with MVP? Is it like
It
Cal?
has
Is
to be
it
Cal. I
is
mean,
it Cal?
just solely based on what he's provided to you from behind the dish, he's dumping homers, 20 of them, leads the team in RBI, obviously a team stat.
Leads baseball in strikeouts.
Does he?
Mm-hmm.
And like he is the he has struck out the most as a batter. Regardless, doesn't matter.
He's top 10, I think.
I will still give him MVP. I'm looking at their F4 on the year right now. He's got 2.7, 0.8 ahead of Julio Rodriguez. He is the like position player MVP. If I want to go crazy, go Verlander Kershaw-esque, I'll give the MVP to Logan Gilbert. How about that? Go crazy.
I would have gone Gilbert. Yeah, I think. Now I have to look. I
Yeah,
have to know.
I'll let you keep talking. I'll give my Cy Young out. It's obviously Gilbert. Fangraphs WAR has Kirby ahead of him, but there's an obvious reason why Gilbert was an all-star. Gilbert's pitched better. There's probably things about certain metrics that Fangraphs appreciates that Kirby does better than Gilbert, but Gilbert I think what leads the league in innings pitched,
Yep.
132 and one and a third innings pitched. He's doing great on the year. I'm very very I don't want to say surprised. He's exceeded my expectations by a ton, Colton.
Mm.
I see that you're done looking, so Cal Raleigh leading the league in strikeouts?
Leading the American League in strikeouts, yes,
Oh,
with
wow.
118.
Ouch.
Um, the only other guys in the top 10 that are in the American League. Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
So Cal is fourth in baseball at 118. Number 9, Brent Rooker at 112, and
Mm-hmm.
number 10. Or no, I'm sorry. Never mind. Never mind. There's only one other guy. It's Brent Rooker. At number 11 is Julio Rodriguez at 110.
Yeah, I mean, 27.4 strikeout percentage for Julio, 33% for Cal. Like, it's hard to swallow that pill, but I mean, offense, like, and strikeout, like, it's not the end all be all. It's not the worst thing. It's just you can't have a lot of it all in the same area of your lineup. Unfortunately, the Mariners, they set the record for most strikeouts in the first half with over 1,000, I'm pretty sure. So, as a team, very good. Who is your MVP?
My MVP, I mean, it has to be Cal,
Okay.
but I think Luke Raley's the other one. Like, if I had to pick one or the other, I'd go Cal just because of what he's meant to the team, but Luke Rayleigh is second on my list.
All right, and then I don't think I have to ask you your Cy Young, but if you'd like a little soapbox moment,
Andres Munoz.
all right.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, oh, right. Sorry. Soapbox moment. Yeah. I want to say that I predicted it. I did. It's like I predicted Bryce Harper going to first base and
A bunch of
Hoyles
other
being
things.
good and Joe being hot. Anyway, on to the next segment here, Joe. You're distracting me with your good looks. Jerry Dipoto went on Seattle Sports Radio and had some things to say about the trade deadline, the Mariners in the first half. One quote, though, stands out above all else, Joe. And that was this, talking about the trade deadline. We are open to doing something that has the potential to be dynamic. Don't know if that's going to be available. Right now, it's not. And this is as late as we've ever gone into a deadline where I can honestly say it's not. So what Jerry Dipoto is saying is the dynamic guys that you would hope to be available. In my opinion, this means guys like Vladdy or Luis Robert or Bo Bichette or stuff like bigger name guys like that.
Hmm.
Now, I wouldn't consider Jazz Chisholm dynamic.
Okay.
But when it comes to dynamic guys, the big fish, it sounds like, are just not biting right now. Is that kind of your understanding on this as well?
It has to be. There's such a big congestion of the standings of the teams that could be in the sellers market just because of how non-competitive the National League wild card is. There are like the Giants sitting at 47 and 50, 3 games under around the All-Star break. They're 3 games back of a playoff position. We saw what the Diamondbacks did last year going 84 and 78. Make the playoffs, go on a run, you're in the World Series. Teams that are just on the cusp don't see themselves as out of it because simply they're not. That's just the way that modern baseball is kind of shaping out to be as far as like playoffs and making it there is concerned. Teams like the Giants, the Cubs, I don't want to go as far as say the Nationals who are 6 back, but the Reds, Giants, and Cubs could all be sellers, 4 years ago, 5 years ago. But instead, they're sitting there like, well, if we get hot, we'll be fine. And that just limits how many teams you're able to make trades with. It's the Marlins, it's the Rockies, the Nats are probably there, it's the White Sox, it's the Athletics, it's the Angels. The Blue Jays, they could be right there. They're 9.5 back. But like you're saying, maybe Vlad, who's got another year after this one, isn't available. Or the asking price isn't like within reason for Seattle and what they're wanting to give up for a guy like Vlad, which shouldn't be, I think, an answer at this deadline because you've seen what position you're currently sat in, first place in the American League West. You've seen what your pitching can do with a very, very subpar offense. What can it do with a league average offense? Maybe slightly above league average? Go win the whole thing. Like, you need to improve this offense some way, somehow. If the dynamic players aren't available, go make them available. Go get them from the teams that have some of them. If Jazz Chisholm isn't a dynamic player, he's probably a step below. I would say, as far as like if we're doing like free agency tiers are concerned. Yeah, he's not on the level of Vlad and Luis Robert. Of course not. But there are other guys out there that are probably above Jazz Chisholm in that respect, like Isaac Paredes, who's been rumored to like the Rays are listening. If the Rays are listening, the Jerry's better be in their DMs, texting, swiping like, hey, sending emojis and shit. You need to go make moves. You can't wait around. And that quote does not inspire any confidence at all that they're going to go do it.
Mm-hmm. No, I completely agree. I think that the thing, like, if Vlad and Bo aren't available, which the Blue Jays GM has said as much, the Blue Jays have said as much that they are not available, and so okay, cool, we get that. Is this offense better if you go get Isaac Paredes and Brian De La Cruz? Absolutely.
Yes.
Like, is it like the perfect offense? No, absolutely not. But or you add Brent Rooker or something like that. But you go out there and get a few guys, and then especially add like another guy to the back end of this bullpen, especially with Gabe Spire coming back as well. you don't have to go out there and sell the farm to get a dynamic guy if they're not available. Like if we wake up on August 1st, Joe, the day after or 2 days after the deadline or whatever it is, and Luis Robert, Vladdy, Bo, all these guys weren't traded, I'm not going to be shocked. Like I'm not going to say, "Oh, well, gosh darn it." Now, if we hear that if these guys do get traded and we don't hear anything about the Mariners even trying to make a push, like if these guys get traded and it's not to the Mariners, there's a problem.
Yeah,
Because the Mariners have the capital in their farm system to go out there and blow any of these teams away. They have the capital. The only team with more of it is maybe the Orioles. If like Luis Robert goes to the Orioles and they gave them a bigger package than the Mariners, sure, I get that. But if Luis Robert somehow goes to like the Pirates or something weird,
sure.
like no, the Mariners should have given more. They should have gone in the extra mile, given another prospect, maybe a higher level prospect, instead to go out there and get the bat that they need. Again, if those guys are not moved at the deadline, I won't be shocked. But that does not mean you shouldn't go out there and fish in the next level down, which, like you said, Isak Paredes is kind of like, I would say he's definitely a league above Jazz.
Sure.
Again, you know how I feel about Jazz. I don't love him.
Mm-hmm.
Brian De La Cruz, obviously, kind of. I put Brian De La Cruz and Jazz on kind of a similar plane,
Sure.
although Jazz can play second base. So, but like Isak Paredes, sure, then go get Isak Paredes. Now, the Rays are probably asking the moon for Paredes, and they should. But if that's the move that you have to make this team better, you do it. Full stop. You do it.
Yeah, because you have to make the offense better. Like that's the most obvious move to make is someone to get and plug into your lineup at the top of the order, the top half, if not in your most important spots, like 2, 3, 4. I don't even say would if we acquire Brian De La Cruz, is he batting fifth? He could bat ahead of that for all I care because this offense has not proven that there's any guys worth batting in the top 4 for the large part of this season. Jerry Dipoto in this same radio segment said that the batting average bothers him. How bad the team is as far as just batting average is concerned. Yeah, it's an old stat, it's an outdated stat, but it's still a barometer of success to some extent. If your team is the worst in batting average in the entire league, I don't know if these still are, but they were flirting with it with the White Sox, 29th and 30th. It's not a place you ever want to be with, and a party with the White Sox when their team is horrendous. Dipoto said that it bothers him. Okay, he admits I didn't do enough to fix it. Okay, you got another chance. That's the beauty of the trade deadline. You have another chance to try and right that wrong in the middle of the season without being like, well, just got to write it off to next year, guys, which felt like something they kind of did last year. We mentioned it a lot that we felt like they failed that deadline. The team was definitely worth buying for. They were one game out of a playoffs last year. That's it. They traded their all-star closer, or maybe not all-star, but their premier closer. Sure, that trade is looking pretty okay now with how well Rojas has performed. Ryan Bliss, I mean, we haven't seen him a ton, but when he's been in, it's been fun for some of it. And then obviously Dom Canzone, if he's an everyday corner outfielder or like a strong side platoon, that's awesome. You got that for a ton of years of control for a year and a half of Paul Sewald. Right? They just didn't do anything else. You can't do the 2023 deadline in 2024 again and expect to be okay.
Whoa. Put some respect
On Edward Bizardo, yeah,
name.
for sure. The 8th man out of the pen that will be gone, hopefully, when...
Whoa.
So, he is not a major league reliever. Full stop. As you just said 5 minutes ago, however long I've been ranting about this. It just doesn't make sense. If they're not willing to go make the team better, what are we doing?
This is one of the reasons I think, personally, I think this is just a bunch of mumbo jumbo.
Sure.
I think this is just GM speak to not if they do miss on someone big, it's not oh, well, you said you were going to get Vlad. Why didn't ya? This is probably, if the Mariners miss the playoffs, they're gone. Jerry's gone, Justin's gone, Scott's gone. All three, 100%. If this is their last go at it, they, in my opinion, will be extra aggressive in this trade market and be willing to give up more of their prospects. I think if they make the playoffs, they're fine. They stay. But if they don't, they are gone. And because of that, I think that they will not be outbid on the top bats in at this trade deadline. And even if the fact of the matter is whether or not teams are willing to give him up. Again, we know, in my opinion, Vlad and Bo are not getting traded. Fact of the matter. In my opinion, honestly, I don't even think Luis Roberts getting traded. Like I think that the White Sox are going to hold on to him. They'd be selling low on him this year. I don't think that Luis Robert gets traded. If he does, it's probably to the Orioles or the Phillies. But Isaac Paredes, Brian De La Cruz, Brent Rooker, those are the ponds where if those guys aren't going anywhere, you have to be fishing in those ponds because those are the biggest fish left available.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're the Seattle Mariners, you have to go out there, especially if you're Jerry Dipoto and Justin Hollander in the last year of your contract, you have to go out there and make an attempt to make this team better, no matter what it takes. It does not matter if those fish are biting, you're throwing 20 hooks in the water and saying, "Hey, you call them and say, hey, what will it take?" You don't even come out with an offer. You say, what will it take? And then you discuss from there and let them pony up the price, tell you what it's going to take. And then you try to talk them down. That's the way that you need to go about this deadline, because if you do not add to this offense, it's an absolute failure. And that is just the fact of the matter. The Mariners offense needs to get better going into the second half, Joe. A second half where the start of it is against the Houston Astros. Tell me about it.
Well, we don't really know a ton other than the fact that the Mariners hold a 1-game lead in the division over the Astros as it stands right now. That division lead hinges entirely on this 3-game series. If you're a smart man, if I want to word it like that, you probably assume that the rotation is just opening day stuff, right? Take it from the top. You go Luis versus Framber Valdez in the first game on Friday. That would be my assumption, right? Beyond that, I don't really know. I don't know how they want it to work. Everyone will have basically full time off in between starts, given like what I think Logan wouldn't be able to pitch Friday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. No, that'd be 5 days because he pitched on Sunday. Like, anyone can go on Friday. It doesn't matter. But the thing that matters the most is you went into the All-Star break limp. You did not have a good end last weekish, aside from the Padres of baseball for the Seattle Mariners. You need to go out and start the second half as hot as can be. And you need to be able to turn up the dial against a team like the Astros. You've played them well this year when they were at their worst. They are currently, I don't want to say at their best, because you never know, but a 10-game lead got squandered in 2.5 weeks. There's obvious reasons behind that. The Astros played well, the Mariners did not. You cannot let them come into Seattle and take that division lead from you. It's nice that we're going to get the rotation all slotted. If it's Castillo versus Framber, game 2 is Kirby versus Hunter Brown, Kirby versus Ronel Blanco, whatever. And then you got game 3 of Gilbert. I mean, Gilbert could pitch game 2. It doesn't matter. It's just we know that the Astros offense is great. Their pitching has leveled out and has become a lot better since when at the beginning of the year they were blowing a lot of games. Same thing with their bullpen. I don't know what the keys to success are, but I can tell you it's not scoring 2 runs a game.
Just don't suck.
Nice.
Yeah, I think that it'll probably be Luis versus Framber in game 1. I think it'll be Logan Gilbert in game 2, honestly, and then Kirby in game 3. The Houston Astros, since June 1st, have been the best team in baseball. The Mariners have been one of the worst. Does that inspire confidence in me? Absolutely not. But with that being said, you have a big series against the Astros with probably a packed house in Seattle, with a lot of the fans, especially myself, because I'll be there, by the way, smile, on Friday. It's fireworks night as well, Joe. So it is going to be packed to the brim at game 1. The Mariners need to come out strong. Julio needs to keep building on what he did over the past week or so of the last part of the first half. Jorge Polanco is still on this baseball team, Joe, as of right now. So we'll see. I said that he was going to play every game up until the break. Break's over now. What do? We'll see. Ty France is a guy who's really struggled. So the offense needs to get it going in the second half as it begins to warm up even more. It's going to be in the mid to high 80s all weekend. So if the Mariners are going to go out there and hit the baseball, maybe the batter's eye is fixed now. We don't know.
Stop
We haven't seen it.
it.
Maybe they fixed it. I don't know. They heard Teo and they're like, okay.
They've just been
But
working
big
day and night trying to fix it.
but big series coming up against the Houston Astros. That's going to do it from us here on episode 105 of the Hit It Here podcast, presented by Bet Online, the Chaos Ball Boy episode of the Hit It Here podcast. And go Mariners.